Thank you so much for that welcome, Jack. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. Can I also begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today? Now, there are a lot of very important people in the room, not the least of which, of course, are the members of the panel, the Vice-Chancellors. I'm not sure what is the collective noun for a group of Vice-Chancellors. Perhaps that can be our task as we eat. We can think about the appropriate collective noun. But can I acknowledge everybody in the room? Thank you for making the contribution by coming along today. What I wanted to do was touch briefly on the government's objectives, talk a little bit particularly about international education and where the new government sees us heading. Today's event is an important one, and I want to congratulate CEDA for organising this get-together on an annual basis in terms of higher education and the VC's panel. I was here last year in a different position, and it's much nicer at the top table, can I tell you that? So I'm pleased that I'm back here today because I do think that CEDA understands the role that higher education can and does play in the economic development of Western Australia. As does the McGowan government, and we came to government with a pretty clear plan about wanting to diversify and strengthen the economy, and recognising the role that higher education plays in that was a key part of the policy that we put together around jobs. Now, I'm just going to apologise in advance because I'm having a bad allergy day today, so my eyes are streaming, my nose is running and my glasses are fogging, so excuse me if I'm kind of looking like I can't see, because basically I can't. The other acknowledgement I wanted to make today was I think this is the first time that Central Queensland University has been represented on the panel. They are now a presence in the West Australian higher education arena, and so I want to welcome them here today as well. So our plan for jobs really was at the heart of it was needing to identify and then diversify the economy. We've already started the process of engagement around that, and we've held a number of industry consortia. And one of the most important ones, one of the earliest ones that we did, was on international education. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the outcomes of that a little bit further on. A key part of diversifying the economy is the innovation economy, and universities and higher education are really well placed, of course, to lead that work. Some of the things that we want to do as a government is to sponsor science industry fellowships to build the relationship between WA companies and our universities. We do want to collaborate greater with our state's educators and industry to identify new future job opportunities that can be generated from really that rapid development of information processing, automation, robotics, and some of the more niche markets where we know new jobs are popping up and where we know young people are particularly interested to work, for example, in the gaming and app development area. We will be introducing a Future Health Research and Innovation Fund. This is a very significant investment to make WA a world leader in medical research and innovation. We will be fostering an innovation economy as well through the development of innovation hubs. We want to foster structured interactions between government, universities, business, industry and the community to drive the development of those hubs and identify further opportunities. We also think that while collaboration between universities is good, it can be so much better, and so we really want to encourage each of the universities to work more closely together, and to the extent that we're able to facilitate that, we want to do that. We know that the devil is often in the detail around planning, and so we are committed to ensuring that our planning laws allow for higher density developments within those innovation hubs, and to review existing legislation to make sure that your capacity as universities to use the land that you want to for those innovation hubs is possible. The renewable industry is another part where we think that universities are really well placed to assist us diversify the economy. We want to encourage intensive research programs into renewable energy and battery technology at our universities. Business into Asia is an important part of how we want to diversify our economy. We've appointed a Minister for Asian Engagement, my colleague Bill Johnson, who, in his various capacities, is also a fluent Indonesian speaker, and he will be driving our work in this area. Our law reform initiatives include the establishment of a Bureau of Crime Stats and Research, which we want to do in partnership with the university, to provide independent evidence-based research on crime and justice. We also, in my own portfolio, want to establish a centre of excellence with the university in respect to literacy, so that we can make sure that our teachers are really well placed to drive literacy reforms in primary schools in particular. Now, we do need to talk about the economic climate we find ourselves in. It's no discussion about plans and priorities can be done without addressing, I guess, what for us as a new government is the elephant in the room, and that's the state of the state's finances. They are dire. I won't bore you with the details of it, but it's making life challenging. Careful what you ask for. But we do need to put, I guess, the comments I'm making today in some context. But I also know, of course, it's not just the state government that's able to pull levers that assist universities. The Commonwealth, around the higher education reform package, we're waiting, I guess, to see the outcome of that. We know that it's due to go through the Parliament again. There are some of my federal colleagues who are here today, and I know that the Senate committee is, I think, due to report early in August. So we'll be watching the outcome of that with great interest. I know that whatever the outcome is, whatever the final legislation and regulations look like, what the sector wants is certainty. So they want to know that the kind of period of uncertainty over the last 5 years or so, I guess, about the legislative framework for universities is actually settled, and that they can get on with their business knowing the environment in which they have to operate. And we might hear some comments today in the panel discussion about what they think that should look like and what they're expecting it to look like. The role of higher education for our state's future is really important, and I do think it needs to be given a higher priority in the Commonwealth's thinking as well. The Prime Minister and his Cabinet are in town next week. I'm sure that GST will feature in the discourse at some point. My personal political reckoning is that there are 5 federal seats up for grabs in the next federal election here in WA, and that we are all in this room in a strong bargaining position to make sure that we press our case. I do want to quickly touch on education and training portfolios and where I think the connections are. I want to work myself, obviously, closely and constructively with higher education. To that end, I'm continuing WAHEC, the council where all of the Vice-Chancellors and the Minister meet on a regular basis, and I'll be using that first meeting, which I think is scheduled fairly soon, to see where we can identify areas that we can work together. In broader terms as well, as Minister for School Education, I recognise that this is a significant part of the challenge, and I really do want to lift the aspirations and the assistance that we offer to students to ensure that we lift the proportion of public school students who are doing ATAR subjects and who are then able to get their way through university. And so I'll be focusing on that. I do want to touch briefly on the importance of STEM because that is clearly an important direction, I guess, for us to take for jobs for the future. We have made a number of election commitments in that area, including providing assistance to create science labs in primary schools at public schools to encourage kids to learn in an authentic science lab environment, to encourage them to take up science into secondary school and then on into university. In respect to international education, which I know many of you in the room today are really interested in, there is low-hanging fruit. I know the people in this room know this because I've been at functions here before where you've talked about it. And we know, and that's why we made an important election commitment about that. International education involves so many more industries than just education. And as a result, responsibility under this government for international education has been placed in the new Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation. However, I, as Minister for Education and Training, will be participating in how we shape and chart our future direction in international education. And to that extent, I'm really pleased to be joining the Premier and two of my colleagues, the Minister for State Development and the Minister for Tourism, and a delegation on a trip to China later this year as our first foray into making sure that we brand WA as the university town of choice for Chinese students. I'm really looking forward to the outcome of that. It was one of the recommendations that came out of the consortia, the higher education consortia, and the planning is well underway, and I'm really looking forward to it because I think there are endless opportunities available to us, and starting in China is a good place to do it. There were a number of other, takeouts from the industry consortia on higher ed, but just a few of those. We've got to really focus on marketing Perth as the study destination rather than the individual institutions. That means we've got to have consistent messaging and marketing. We've got to decide and focus on our key markets and not try to cover too many. There are existing international relationships from our mining industry through to our universities, and we've got to leverage those existing connections. Evidence and research is important, and when we're in China, the particular focus that I will be playing is engaging with potential research partners, and I'll be visiting a number of Chinese universities to encourage research collaboration between them and the West Australian universities. There were many suggestions made at the industry consortia about the student experience and how we put the student at the centre of our marketing campaigns. Many of those are at low cost, and we've started work already on how we can establish those. That consortium meeting just about a month or so ago now was a really good start to helping us develop a coherent strategy. And the new Department for Jobs, Tourism, Science, Innovation is leading the strategy, and I look forward to working closely with them. We do need to focus as well on how we improve regional higher education and encouraging Indigenous students to participate and see their qualifications through in higher education. I was pleased to catch up with Liz Constable just before we started to hear about what she's doing at St Cat's close to UWA to encourage Indigenous students to feel welcome at universities. I look forward to hearing from the panel later in today's proceedings. I know that these events can be engaging. Please feel free to ask robust questions. I can say that because I'm not going to be on the panel. So please feel free to ask the questions that you want to ask. I do, as a social media user, I do encourage you to tweet. I didn't bring my selfie stick with me today, but I will take a photo of the crowd at some point, and I'll certainly be tweeting it. I'm really pleased to be able to have the opportunity to join you today. I look forward to working with many of you as we develop our strategy around how we best place higher education and in particular international education in Western Australia in the years ahead. Thank you so much for the opportunity of joining with you today, and I look forward to hearing from the panel.